Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's very, very hot here in SoCal. We're going through a heat wave, so we're surviving.
Yeah. So a friend of mine lives down like in the Dana Point area of
Okay.
California, and he was sending me like videos of like the fires and like all kinds
Yes.
of
Yeah,
crazy stuff.
it's getting
Yeah.
kind of crazy over here. They
Yeah.
call it the airport fire that's going on too. So it's the weather's been really bad. There's always air quality alerts for the different schools, and so the kids are just kind of staying inside, and yeah, so it's pretty bad.
They haven't like canceled school or anything yet, right?
Not yet, but we're getting those notifications I have not seen before. So I'm kind of
Mm.
nervous about that. But we're all,
Yeah.
and, as long as everyone's staying inside and safe, and the air's blasting, I think all the parents are okay with them.
Yeah. And you're safe where you are, obviously.
Yes, yeah. We can definitely. We've been getting videos from friends and pictures, but it's pretty scary.
Yeah, totally.
How
Wow. Well,
close it's
goodness.
getting.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, stay safe and best of luck
Yes.
with everything. I know how unbelievably treacherous all of that can be, but
Yeah.
thank you for hopping on. And before we started chatting, you were telling me you're getting through the morning routine and everything, and so I know
Yes.
that stuff. It's back to school in full swing, right?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is back to school in full swing, and with the heat and adjusting and schedules, it's a lot of emotions on all sides, not just my kids, but myself too. We're all just hanging on by a thread, but we're good.
I'm very excited to talk with you, Sarah. Sarah Watkins, founder of Awesome Sauce, and we were joking we are going to
Mhm.
say the word awesome a lot, but you
Yes, we are.
have such a unique organization that you have founded supporting individuals with autism, and the AU in awesome, right?
Yes.
And just tell us a little bit before we get into the thick of it, Sarah. Maybe just the elevator pitch on Awesome Sauce and the organization.
Well, I think for myself, I like to say that it's a selfish effort because my son was diagnosed at the age of 2.
Mhm.
He just turned 8 a couple weeks ago, and when I was going through the process, you're sort of in an unknown territory if you don't know anything about autism. Even if you do,
Right.
having your child diagnosed is really difficult. You're kind of
Sure.
in this glass case of emotion, but also you're like grieving and
Yeah.
just trying to navigate life. And it took me quite some time to feel comfortable in my even journey because
Mm.
my immediate family knew, but I still feel like I wasn't expressing or being quite out there with his diagnosis because I was still very much protecting him and our family because we're still
Yeah,
going through
of
the
course.
emotions, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Um, and so I had my second son, and through the pandemic, so like he was born February, pandemic hit 2020, 1 month later. So
Right.
we had a lot of adjustments in our family. I think like with anything, everyone sort of turned inward, and TikTok blew up, Instagram had different
Right.
aspects of things, but a lot of families were showing the inside of their lives, and particularly I started going down algorithms of moms showing their lives with children with like an autism diagnosis, ADHD,
Sure.
the struggles of like,
Some spectrum
yes,
oriented diagnosis. Yeah.
exactly, and just showing how they had to adjust
Mm.
everything in their home. And we already have a hard time being outside, and our schedules are so difficult, and then we have to change that completely. It was really hard. So
Yeah.
it gave me some inspiration. I decided to I had seen a mom actually who was in Florida, and she was doing meetups for young kiddos
Right, right.
and the families in particular. And I said, I would like to do something like that. Do you have it in California? And she had said, not really, but if you're willing to. It didn't work
Take
out.
it.
Yeah, it didn't work out because there were some requirements that she needed, and in California, it just wasn't something that we could do.
Right.
So I decided to sort of branch off, and I hit the ground running. And it started off with just the mixer because I had been a part of support groups, but I didn't feel like I belonged. But I also wanted my child to be a part of it too, because that's part.
Sure.
They should
That was important
socialize.
to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So we created the mixer, and it happens monthly, and it sort of has snowballed since then. We do different events throughout the month, and throughout the year. And we've been operating since 2022, and it's
Mm,
just been amazing, amazing in
outstanding.
all aspects. Yeah.
Yeah. We are here and joined today by Sarah Watkins, the founder of Awesome Sauce. And Sarah, um, you had told me a little bit about the organization and where it came from when we had our pre-interview a couple of weeks back, but it's such a unique organization that you founded with Awesome Sauce and the work that you're doing to support individuals with autism. Could you just tell me a little bit about that genesis and where it came from?
Yes. So I say this often about it being a selfish thing because my son is 8. He was diagnosed at 2,
Mhm.
and for me, I couldn't find a community. I
Yeah.
I and mind you, I tried. I looked into support groups. Uh, a lot of the my son was just I think 3 when I started to actually dive into things like that, and a lot of the support groups had older and families or older individuals. And so there was just a lot of disconnect. And during that diagnosis process, you're sort of just trying to figure out what is best for you as a family or you and your
Sure.
family, but also for your child.
Mhm.
And so I was in an emotional state for a very long time, and I just couldn't
Yeah.
actually um, find where we belonged or where he
Where
belonged,
you
where I
fit.
belong.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, where we fit. And
Yeah.
so, um, after I had my second child, COVID hit, so, literally a month later, and we had decided to just, uh, as we all did, bunker down. We actually were switching districts from LA County to Orange County,
Oh,
and,
okay.
the transition for any child during that time was hard, but for a child with autism and has, a 3-year-old who
Particularly
can't
difficult.
sit and
Yeah.
focus, it's really difficult. So, like with anything and during COVID, social media was really big. TikTok had exploded, and I had
Right.
really gone down these algorithms of finding, moms that were looking inward, showing their lives with their child with either ADHD, autism, maybe even multiple
Mm.
diagnoses, and how they were struggling as well. So I felt a connection to that.
Right.
I had wanted to do something in California. I said,
Mhm.
something needs to happen because I know I can't be feeling like this alone. There's just
Yeah,
no
I
way.
can't be
I
the
know that
only
there
one.
are other families. Yes. And so I connected with mom on social media. She's actually in Florida, and she was doing like these meetups. And I said, I want to do something like that. Do you have it in California? And she unfortunately didn't. And we tried to connect and make it work, but it just didn't
Didn't
happen. So
happen.
I
Yeah.
decided to hit the ground running and find my own space
Uh-huh.
to do these meetups. And I called everywhere. I made it specific to the city, and although people wanted like a park, it just didn't work because our kiddos, they're runners. We call it they're
Right, right.
eloping. That's what
And
we
it
call
was
where they
important to
take
you to
off.
have the children be a part of this
Safety.
too,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So it was not just for parents. It wasn't a support group, and it wasn't just a social group for the kids. It's for the entire
Right,
family. We wanted that
right.
aspect where parents can connect with other parents and feel safe,
Mhm.
but also the children can socialize organically where they don't have to feel forced or it's like part of a
Right,
school system where they have to
right.
sit and attend. It's just
It can just
everyone's
happen.
here,
It can just be.
everyone's welcome, and everyone needs to feel safe. And so we started with our mixers, and they happen once a month now, but it's sort of snowballed into a lot of different events that happen
Right.
monthly. And we just try to connect families with other families, communities with other communities. And I've just had such a great experience doing this. And I didn't expect it to happen the way it happened, but it
That is
has.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And help me understand, Sarah, how many people came to the first one, and how did you feel after the first one?
I love this question because it's such a ingrained memory.
Yeah.
I mind you, like I had my little one with me who was barely walking, and I was hitting up every single therapy place I knew of in the area. I was Googling, and I'd print out flyers and I would just drop it off. And I was hoping, I said, I just want eight kids. If I can just get 8 children, I
Right.
would be excited because,
I'll feel
8 children in their
successful.
families. Yeah.
Sure.
We had about 18 to 19 families or 18 kids show up, but with their family members, and it was fantastic. And it wasn't just from Orange County, mind you, it was from all cities. It
Oh,
was,
really? You were pulling people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, Corona, Riverside, LA County, South Orange County, near me in my city. And it, it was so good to see how it's it's funny because usually we're always apologizing for our kids sometimes, or we might hover a
Right.
little bit too much because we're very sensitive. When we go
Sure.
out to the park or things like that, we feel overly sensitive in certain situations. So
Mm.
in this case, you can see the families hovering.
Yeah.
And as like the 2 hours went on, it was like they were able to sit back and
Relax a little bit.
talk
Yeah.
with other parents and not feel like they had to apologize for, a kiddo throwing sand or someone doing some snow angels or another one like not wanting to, interact,
Right.
or another
Yeah.
child that was specific with the toy. It was just everyone became a lot more comfortable. And
That's
I'll
amazing.
always, always remember that. And
Yeah.
that's what I strive for every single time.
And talk to me a little bit about the mechanics now, Sarah. How does it work? You mentioned that you kind of strive for them monthly, and I know that obviously you've done so much more, and we'll talk about all those things. And I
Yeah.
was, on your website, and I see the community of women that are part of your board, and you have a very
Mhm.
impressive board. So there's there's
Yeah.
so much I want to talk to you
Yeah.
about today. But tell me a little bit, just like how it, I guess, the mechanisms of how it works.
You know, the mixers are sort of, it's clockwork now. We do it
Yeah.
once a month, and it's always usually at the city building because it's an enclosed space. But
Mm.
in addition to that, we've sort of decided to give back to, just the moms. Let's do a meetup. Let's do a mom's night out.
Yeah.
My
Nice.
husband's very involved, and he likes to, bring the dads together because that's also something that's super
Yeah.
difficult.
Important.
The
Yeah.
dads sometimes, are there to help with like the heavy lifting, but um, you know, the involvement's kind of hard because they don't know how sensitive, or
Right.
maybe even if they're adjusting that well, because they're not so open to that conversation. So my husband likes to put those on
Sure.
for dads as well, so they
Well, that's,
can
I mean,
just get
it's great
together.
because you're producing a support system for the dads as well, like you
Yeah,
said, who may take a little longer to maybe get there, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, as I've been, getting our name out there, I've also connected with businesses in the area,
Mm.
whether that be an organization that might do something for siblings of children with neurodiverse needs,
Sure.
or I've tabled so many events. I get involved in my district and other districts around me so that we can, really get the word out there and get our name out there and show that you can be a part of something that's outside of the clinical perspective, that's outside of the school district, that
Right.
makes you feel safe. Um, you know, I work with certain businesses like, those jump places that might,
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. The jump on internet
we
places. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we try and do like sensory hours, or ask that they promote for sensory hours so that way our families can enjoy those experiences too.
Mm.
Bowling, we've even partnered with this, certain cities that do like Christmas plays because a lot of our families have never experienced that before.
Sure.
Practice trick or treating. So we try and just do. I know what I needed as
Right. As a
support needs
parent.
parent. So
Yeah.
I try and bring those types of experiences that maybe they might have not had at some point, or
Right.
maybe they had and it became a bad memory when it should have been a good memory, to just allow them that little slice of normalcy in some
Right.
ways. Um, so it's turned into me really working and trying to find the next thing that we can do for our families.
I was. I was.
And it,
I was. Yeah. Please go. Please keep going. Yeah.
no, I was just
Yeah.
in addition to that, we decided to let's add on more to the plate, and we do a resource market. So I tend to a lot of different resource events where we table and talk about awesome sauce. But I myself love to support small business. So we combine the two. We create this big event twice a year where it's in support of either nonprofits, businesses, but also individuals that might who are neurodiverse or support neurodiversity that might be selling like art or
Right.
jewelry or candles. And so we've come together and it's a resource market. So
Yeah.
that's really great for us. And that's another thing that we do twice a year too. So we're busy.
You are busy. That's part of what I was going to ask you. Is you've put such a strong influence, and it's so impressive, and emphasis, I would say, more than influence, Sarah, like such a strong emphasis on inclusiveness and inclusive communities. And your approach to community engagement, I can tell, is very like, you know, inclusive oriented, right? And
Yeah.
how you've created spaces, like you said, that kind of truly support and uplift those with neurodiversity and families of, individuals with neurodiversity. I was going to ask you a little bit about, as you've built those communities, you talked a little bit about what's next in the resource market, and I certainly want to talk more about that too. But where have you been sort of surprised, Sarah, by this process? And has, on this show as entrepreneurs, we talk so much about how important our communities are. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious as to, where have you been sort of pleasantly surprised in the work that you've done within the communities?
I feel like, you know, a lot of times I felt alone.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
in reality, it was just about finding those that were going through what I was going through. So
Mm,
once I opened up myself enough to be vulnerable and create the community, it was
yeah.
like everything sort of clicked,
Yeah.
and so that's sort of been the drive.
Mm.
Um,
Was
I've
it hard to
made
do that, Sarah? Was it hard to let yourself kind of be
oh,
vulnerable like that? And yeah,
yeah, and it
yeah.
still
I
is.
mean,
It's still a struggle for me,
you strike me
as
as a person who is extremely, like, put together and
yeah. Yes,
strong
and
and yeah,
yeah, and that was really, really hard,
yeah,
for me to put myself out there, to put my family and specifically my son, because not only am
right.
I,
Your instinct is
trying to
protect, protect,
yeah,
protect. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and, you're trying to navigate your own path, but
Mm,
and as a first-time parent, you're trying to navigate guide your child, but in my case, my child might need guidance for the rest of his life, and
right,
so
for
when you're
sure.
trying to figure that out, it's hard,
Mm,
and as far as being surprised, I think just the overwhelming support and the,
yeah,
understanding and the acceptance has been amazing, and I feel just so grateful that I get to do this every
yeah,
day, and that I get to, speak my story and hopefully in this, way, and that's why I'm very grateful and having this conversation with you to support someone else that might feel like they need to do something, because if you don't do it, who will?
well, and
And
I
that's
think
so important.
that's a very important statement that you just made, and what you did is completely reflective of that, right? You
Yeah,
spoke to this woman in Florida. You asked if there's something existed like this in California. She said no. You tried to do something with her. That's fine, but at the end of the day, you were like, okay, I'm going to go from 0 to 1 here in California because this doesn't exist.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And that's a very brave thing to do. I mean, I think one of the most entrepreneurial things we can say is when we see a problem and there's no solution, and instead of being like, "Hey, like that's the next person's problem to solve, not mine," you go and and
yeah,
built it from
yeah,
nothing, right?
yeah, and I think the, that support I've received and, has helped me want to do more and give more and
Yeah,
provide as much as I can. So it's like a drive, it goes back and forth. It's not
wonderful.
just something that I have inside of me. It's, those that support and encourage and want and express what they
Uplift.
need. Yeah,
Yeah, uplift. Absolutely.
definitely.
As a sort of, again, one of the reasons why I like talking to you so much is you have this um interesting, such an overused word, but you have this interesting blend of
Yeah,
advocate and entrepreneur, Sarah,
yeah,
right? And we talk a little bit
yeah,
about the resource market and some of the work that you're doing with the resource market in a very entrepreneurial way to bring service providers into what you're doing as part of Awesome Sauce. How did you conceptualize that, Sarah? How did that kind of come together as part of your kind of core sort of, offerings or mission?
it's interesting. I've had many jobs in my life.
Mhm.
And I like to say you when I wanted to work in something, I would just find a job in that.
Yeah.
I always just it always seemed to work out. But I also never felt like it was right either. I felt like
Hmm.
there was always something a little bit more or something more that I could do. And I've worked in fashion,
Right.
I worked in PR, marketing, I worked in finance as a client service, individual, and that was like my big girl job. I've done a lot of different things, and I think getting to this place, and mind you, I didn't quit my job to do this. I had already decided I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, and that was the most difficult decision for me in any
Oh, that's a huge
job
career decision.
position.
Yeah.
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 And it sort of happened simultaneously.
Mhm.
And I think just all of my experience in the past with this like passion to do something brought
Mm.
the two together. Like
Mm.
I always felt like there was more.
Right.
And I think God, has plans and,
Sure.
allowed me to, um, become a support needs parent. And so therefore, it sort of combined the two. And I don't know. I want to, and even when I talk about the process of starting it, because I get asked that often, and you know was asked to be a mentor to someone the other day, and I said I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing, and
Be a mentor.
but
Yeah.
I know it's right, like I know it's right, and so I don't know. It's hard to say. Like I can't sit here and say I went down this path, or I decided to do this, or I always knew, but I just this felt right, and it still does. And I know that there can be so much more. Like we do what we do, but I have so many other plans and ideas in the works, and it's just about getting there. And I want it to happen so fast, but I always have to remember we're only in this like 2.5 years, and
Right. Yeah. You've
it
accomplished a
comes with
lot.
time. Yeah,
April of 2022, is that right?
yeah, April
Yeah.
2022.
So you've
Yeah,
accomplished a lot since April of
yeah,
2022.
yeah,
And what you say about mentoring and someone asking you to be a mentor and not yeah, how can I be a mentor? I'm not ready or
yeah,
whatever. To
yes,
me, mentoring is really nothing more than just showing up for the person,
yeah,
right? And if someone just asks you to be there and you show up for them, that just goes such a long way. And
yeah,
I see you right now as just you're showing up for people that need you
yeah.
to. And that's a
It's
lot,
hard. It's
it's
a hard
hard. Yeah.
balance though,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, like I would love that, but I also like I don't have it together. I'm still working it out. And
Yeah. Still
that's
trying to figure it
I
out. Yeah.
think that's a good, and it's a good, it's a good way to keep you in line and keep your mission and your thought process in check, I think. So,
Right.
you know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
So do you feel like you mentioned something a minute ago, Sarah, about how like you just if you wanted a job in something, you would just kind of go and try to do it. Right.
Yeah.
So sounds like to me like you are absolutely the kind of learn on the job type of person or learn in the
Yeah.
moment kind of person. Have you always been that way? And I was talking to a young woman a couple of days ago who interviewed for a job and was really, really worried about if she was going to get enough training. If she got hired, was she going to get enough training? Because she was already feeling like she wasn't going to be successful because
Yeah.
the subject matter was was very foreign to her, right?
Yeah.
And my advice to her was, look, if you don't feel uncomfortable, then you probably shouldn't do it. Like you should feel a
Exactly.
little,
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Have you always lived by that, Sarah, as your sort of credo, or is that something that came to you
I
over
think
time?
No, I think so. I think I've
Yeah.
always sort of lived by that. If I wanted to do something, I would kind of figure out
Do
any
it.
way I could. And
Yeah.
I'm not the person that will email you and expect an email back. I'll email you, but I'll call you and
Mhm.
find out, when can we meet? How can we do this? Even when I was looking for a job in events, I was like, I would call different event companies until one of them was like, sure, we can use a part-time or a
Person.
full-time
Yeah.
employee. Why don't you come in?
Right.
You know,
So
I
just
I
not
had
being
always
afraid to knock on doors. Yeah.
yeah, and that's what happened with Awesome Sauce. When I wanted to find a space that I felt was everyone could be comfortable in, I called everyone in every city and I said, I need this space.
Yeah.
How can you support the neurodiverse community? I can tell you how. Let us, give us your space, and I promise, we'll show up every single. So it was a process, but I feel like if you no's just a word. I understand
Right.
it can be
Yeah.
discouraging sometimes, but I think you have to try. And even if it is a no, then okay, you mark that one off and you go down the list and you
Yeah.
try for the next person or
Yeah.
the next conversation. And you can only I think it also gives you a little bit of strength, and
Yeah.
makes you tough a little bit. And
Well, I think
so you just got to try it.
it does thicken your skin a little bit, right? And
Yeah,
don't be afraid to
definitely.
send that email, or like you say, make that phone call, or
Yeah.
reach out to that person on LinkedIn or Facebook or
Yeah.
whatever, like however you're doing
Yeah.
it, right? So yeah.
Yep.
I
Exactly.
mentioned a little earlier ago about I don't know if you call it your board or your executive team, but you have put together, some very impressive women behind that are working with you as part of this now. How did that team formulate? Were they just, moms that were coming to the events and they had similar sort of interests as you? I feel like we're only as strong as our teams, right? And it
No,
looks
yeah,
like
definitely.
you've got a good posse there that you've built up, Sarah.
Yes.
So I'm
You
curious as
know,
to how you found those co-fellows.
yeah, it's a little bit of both. So, my vice chair, she was a coworker of mine, and we had
Mm.
dealt with a lot of when we worked at. Well, I don't work there anymore, but she still does. We worked with a lot of. We worked in finance, but we did the back end of things, and so we'd see a lot of legal paperwork and things like that. And we were trained
Right,
to have a keen eye for certain things, and so one night I was talking to her. I said, "This is what I've been wanting to do, but I want to do it the right way. I want to make sure it's legitimate. I would like to start a nonprofit. My
right.
minor is in human services, so I knew like the logistics of things.
A
I
little
did a
bit.
lot of internships,
Yep.
but I said I want to do it the right way. So she really, and she's a mom, but she's not a mom of a neurodivergent
Okay.
child. Her,
Mhm.
but she knew those aspects of things.
Right.
So she took a lot on with making sure we had an EIN, making sure our articles of
Right.
incorporation were set up properly,
Right.
double checking that paperwork. And while we worked together, um, I got to do I'll call the city, I'll do I'll start Instagram. And so while she took care of that heavy load, I was able to focus on the things that would get everything started.
Right.
I know the importance of social media. It's free marketing, and that's where
Absolutely.
it's at. And so I brought someone
That's where you
on that I
found your
actually.
first. Yeah, that's where you found your first.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. So it was important to get I pretty much laid everything out first. I
Mm.
wanted the name. Like I said, I worked in fashion. So one of my girlfriends is a designer. I said, this is what I want the logo to look like.
Yep.
Help me put that together. And so I made sure everything was in motion before I just threw it out there.
Right.
And with that, my vice chair and I worked really hard. She brought on someone that she thought would be fantastic, who also had a connection to neurodiversity.
Mm.
And then, the creative aspect and all the project director, they were moms that came into my life that had a passion for, their children because they were neurodiverse. And
Right.
we became the dream team and really got everything together, got everything started. And I had a really great support system in that. And they felt my passion, and we made it work and we clicked really well.
I'm
So
sure they felt your passion, and I'm sure they felt your leadership as part of it too, Sarah. And it does seem like you've really surrounded yourself with a good team and a good posse there. And I find it
yeah,
very interesting too that it's. I think one may draw the assumption like, oh well, everybody who's on her team must have a must have a neurodiverse child, and you're like, no, that's not the case, right? People
yeah,
are
it's
are
not.
here believing in it. Maybe they're wanting to move past some of the misconceptions or other things, right? That I
Yeah,
think so many. I think I don't know. This is my perception, and it may be incorrect, Sarah, but I do feel like there's a lot of sort of like armchair quarterbacks out there about neurodiversity and what they think it means and what
yeah.
their perception and their conception is of it,
And
right?
mind
And
you, that
yeah,
term has been. I mean, it really wasn't something that was used a lot until just even in the last 2 years. I mean, we used to
recently,
focus
yeah,
specific on autism, and AU was representation of autism, and I mean it
right,
is, but we've had to change our perspective a little bit because now
mm,
there's dual diagnoses, and
right,
there are just different. It has to be an umbrella, and
mm,
we have to shift. Even me being a mom of a child who has autism,
right,
or is autistic, I
right,
had to shift my perspective as well. And
right, right.
so that it's always ever changing. Even the numbers have become a lot smaller, and you're most likely now going to know somebody with a diagnosis of some kind.
I would think so. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
I
changing
would,
a lot. It's changing a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. You
So
you mentioned, Sarah, that you got your mind is racing all the time, and I'm sure that's
Hmm.
very much part of your entrepreneurial spirit and your
Yeah.
entrepreneurial drive. And you talked about the resource market. There's a lot of resources that are available on your website as well, your social media presence. As we kind of, I hate saying this out loud, but look, we're barreling into September and
Yeah.
the end of this year, and where are you thinking in terms of what you set out to accomplish this year, and how do you feel relative to that? And as you look into 2025, Sarah, what are some of the things that are on your mind, if you are able to share them?
I think that um, we have a good system of what we do as far as
Mm.
events monthly. I feel like it's an easily run
Yeah,
process.
you say
We've
it's a
had those
machine now,
relationships,
right? Yeah.
and the mixers will continue forever.
Mhm.
For me, I want to move forward in more education, more
Mhm.
resources, and not just the resource market, but I would like to, have parent nights where they're coming just for specific education reasons. And it's not
Right.
just, an IEP or the school, it's how to financially set yourself up and your child up. Like, maybe let's talk about special needs trust. Let's talk about
Right.
a 529 financial able account for your child. And,
Sure.
maybe if they want to go to school or they don't want to go to school, and you can use it in different ways. Therapy in families, therapy in couples, therapy in your family in general, because it's so important, that difficulty that we have to go through as
Right.
parents, as support, caregivers. And so it's important to check in with yourself as well.
Mm.
When we work with Regional Center, and that's here in California, and they offer a lot of different services, but a lot of parents don't know about those services. How
Sure.
can you, if your child has so much therapy, you know what do you do? Do you continue to work? Do you not continue to work? There are just a lot of
Right.
things besides just that therapy aspect for your kiddo, or the school aspect for your kiddo. There's so much more that you have to just prepare for. So
Mm.
my goal is to get that education series out. We're hoping to start in October.
That's
Our end
cool.
of year is very, very busy because it's our biggest mixers. We have our Halloween one where
Holiday
the
and
kids,
yeah.
they get to
Yeah.
practice trick or
Yeah.
treating, and we do our holiday one where Santa gets to come, and they get to take pictures with Santa and just have those experiences. So
Yeah.
it's super busy, but I think I can no longer put off the education part of things, and
Sure.
we're starting the process, and we're going to get that rolling. And I would like to, I think about that, and like, I would like to do it in Spanish. I would like to do it in different languages, and
Sure.
all that's coming. But it's just, it's a part of getting that going. But I want to definitely dip into the giving back to other, maybe, different communities, mom groups,
Sure.
education, and do what we can to give back as well, because
Mm.
it's important to support other nonprofits, because we got to do what we got to do. We got to stick together. It's a
No,
hard
I think
business.
you're all in this together, and the nonprofit space
Yeah.
is a hard space, right? Because
Hmm.
look, at the end of the day, you're limited, and you're only, your impact can be severely limited by funding, right?
Yeah,
And what you have
definitely.
available to you. Yeah. When my daughter was first born, my wife became part of an organization called the Mother Connection.
Okay.
And there were, like, there were regional chapters that were associated with it. There wasn't one in our town, but there was one in the town next door. So she was able to join that. And again, it was, meetups and mixers and resources and those kinds of things. But it was much more focused on social. It wasn't, specific to any kind of child development or anything like that. It was
Yeah.
just moms getting together type of thing. Um, Kind of low key franchise. Is there something here, Sarah, where this goes across multiple states in your mind at some point in time?
We talk about it. We even talk about just starting within cities. A lot of people
Sure.
ask us to go down towards, the San Diego
San
area,
Diego
South Orange
or yeah,
County,
yeah.
LA. I've been slowly creeping out to those cities and having conversations.
Mm,
We're trying to figure out the best way to do it, because
sure.
our mission and is so important, the safety
Right.
aspect of things, the inclusion. So it's not just a park meetup, which I understand can be done, and that's
Yeah.
fine. There's,
Yeah.
that if you have to start there, that's fine. But it's
Start
just,
somewhere. Yeah.
yeah, I, we're trying to figure out logistics, whether it be a chapter, whether it be a committee.
Right.
Um,
You have
know,
an
and
existing membership model today, but it's kind of
yes,
individual based, right? Or family
but I
based.
think, yeah, it is. But also logistics when it comes to children is difficult, you know, the
Of course.
insurance aspect of things.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's scary for me as a, you know, as a founder and an owner, because I want it to be that safety aspect across the board. So we're working
Sure.
on it. We're trying to dip into different ways that can be done, even if it's just maybe expanding a resource market out to a different city. So that way, you know, we can support those organizations and those businesses that feel comfortable in that area. Like we're talking about, you know, Pasadena, LA County area.
Right.
So yes, there's talks to expand. It's just that, you know, it's a lot of work and
A lot
we're
of work
getting there.
and
And it's
yeah.
on my to-do list, I promise. But yeah,
Sure. No, it's
we're
all about
trying to
it's all
we're
about
trying
prior
we're getting
priorities
there.
and strategies and
Yeah.
resources all have to align,
Yeah.
right? And what you said about, the liability and the insurance and things, those are all real considerations. I understand,
Yeah.
I sat on the board of a nonprofit childcare center here in Massachusetts for 8 years. And I think those were the most stressful 8 years of my life, right? To
Yeah.
your point about
Yeah.
worrying about liability and all kinds of issues associated with that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, these are kids. These are a very, very, very precious thing we're
Yeah.
talking about. Sarah,
Definitely.
certainly this platform is really, you know been designed to talk about the perspective of a woman and
Yeah.
her, her needs as an entrepreneur and her journey as an entrepreneur. Again, you have such a unique combination of advocacy and entrepreneurship. And you're a mom. It sounds like you have a great and supportive partner. But talk to me a little bit about, some of your experiences as a woman trying to do what you're doing, and also, because you're a mom, so it's very personal
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I am very protective
Mhm.
of the organization. I think when
Mm.
I first started, um, I was seeking help from individuals that I don't know. While they were supportive, I just think our thought process didn't align.
Yeah,
You know,
sure. This happened.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and it does happen. I think as a woman, you're always trying to um, speak up a little bit more, or I don't know, find your space, right?
Right.
And mind you, I am 4'11". I'm not joking. And so I've stood in rooms. I worked in
I can
finance.
tell because you're sitting down.
I've stood in rooms with men. I worked in a lot of industries that were
You're
male
finance and yeah,
dominated.
very male dominated. Yeah, yeah.
It's almost like I did I worked as an attorney's office, and then I went to events, and then I went to fashion, and then I went to finance. So there was just a lot, I've had both aspects of things. And
Right, for
so
sure.
I think it's a learning curve. You have, because working with men in a male driven industry is difficult, but also working with women in a women based industry is so difficult, because it's not
Yeah.
always you flow, or
Right.
and so I've taken both aspects, mind you. And I worked in events, it was all women. I worked in fashion,
Finance,
and I've dealt
and
with it.
legal.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've dealt with
Yeah.
a lot of the different aspects of things. I think
Mm.
it's just about staying true to yourself.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have the confidence, maybe you should just go in there and act like you do, because
Right.
it can become, because the more you let it weigh on you, the harder it is to feel like you belong. And
Yeah.
so, yes, I've dealt with some things, but I've also felt very uh, blessed in all those experiences, because I think it got me to where I am. And I do feel comfortable. I'm a part of a chamber, I'm a part of different city events, and
Sure.
I'm there, and I'm speaking up on Awesome Sauce behalf. And I think all of that has helped me to get to this point. And confidence is not an emotion, it's a learned thing. And once you're able to master it, even if it's just a little bit, I think you can do anything.
God, what you just said, that the way you said that was so beautiful. Like, confidence is not an emotion,
Yeah,
right?
it's not.
That it is. Yeah.
You might feel
Yeah.
like it is.
Yeah, well, I think we do all do, right? Because
Hmm.
our the emotionality of it gets in the way, right? The nerves or the anxiety or whatever. that erodes at your confidence, right?
Yeah.
So I really appreciate, Sarah, what you just said there about how it's like a learned thing,
Yeah,
right? It's a
it
learned
is.
behavior for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Um, as you think about, the impact that Awesome Sauce has had, um, I'm going to put you on the spot. It's probably going to be difficult for you because I'm sure there's many of them, but is there any favorite story or success, Sarah, that really kind of, still catches you in the throat or gets you really excited when you think about it?
There are a lot. There
Yeah, I
are a
bet.
lot.
Yeah.
I think, for on a personal level,
Mm,
I've made some really great friends.
that's
My
amazing.
husband has
Yeah.
made some really great friends. You know, we vacate. I would never think we just recently we vacationed with another family that has a neurodiverse son, and never in
Mm,
my life would I ever have pictured something
that
like that
happening.
because
Right. Yeah.
it's a it's a sacred space for you and your family, and then you're already a little nervous about how your kid's gonna,
Right.
react in a different space besides their home, and it
And
was
then
a
you add
great
another
time.
family to that, and it's
Yeah,
just that much more.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to say that was a really, it was a great
Sounds
experience,
fabulous.
and I felt like
Yeah.
it was a
Where'd you go?
triumphant. We went to Palm Springs, just something
That's
super
hey,
simple.
Palm
We do
Springs
it
is
every
lovely.
year.
Yeah. Yeah.
My kids were in the pool, and in the pool with other kids, and it was really cool
That's
to
awesome.
just
Yeah.
feel like we weren't just there by ourselves, and our kid
Right.
wasn't the only child that needed some a little bit of help, or maybe the iPad for a little bit longer. So it was a great experience.
That's great.
I think as I see other families, it could have just been we do our holiday one, and Santa comes, and I always prep our characters. The kids might not come up to you, but it would be
Sure.
nice maybe if you can walk around and take some pictures. And one mom came up to me after and said, I've never had the two of my kids take a picture together, let alone
Mm,
smile with Santa.
right.
And it just seems so
But that warms your heart
small.
right away.
And it's
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
that's super important to me.
Yeah.
Those things like that. And then, conversations when my first mixer happened, I had a mom say, "Are you going to do this next month?" And I said, "Yeah, we're going to, it'll be
Do
here
every
every
month.
month."
Yeah.
And she kind of was like, "Are you sure?" And I said, it was an odd question. And I didn't understand until later that, you know, a lot of change happens in our lives.
Yeah.
Therapists leave, and our team may leave, or a favorite teacher might move on. And,
Right.
you know, that's hard for us. And so we feel like there's not consistency in
Yeah.
what we're doing sometimes. And not only do we have a problem with it, our child might have a really hard time with it. And
Sure.
so I think that consistency and showing up for families is really what's proven that we're here, for them. And so it's just little questions like that, little
Yeah.
tidbits. I've connected with families, with other families that might be in their area. I've seen, we had a dad, I had a mom come up to me. I table at Pretend City, which is this great museum it's like basically a little city for kids, and they do neurodiverse nights. And so I'll table there and I'll talk to families. And this woman came up who I've seen before, and she had her husband. And she said, "My husband would like to go to dad's night." She's like, "I signed him up."
Yeah.
He came up after and said, "I've been having a hard time. And
Yeah.
so I'm finally ready to get out there a little bit more and make some friends, so I don't feel like I'm dealing with a hard
Um,
time alone."
yeah. Alone in
And
this. Yeah.
so that was fantastic. He went to his first dad's night, and he just had some beers at a brewery and just talked. And so those are just little things that stick out. There's so many more, but it's
Those are
just connections and unknowing things. If I meet another organization, like I had a mom where her daughter was recently diagnosed with epilepsy, but I came in contact with someone at a resource market, and so I
Mm,
gave her her card and said, "Why don't you reach out and see how they can help you in any questions about epilepsy, because it's not just about
right.
autism." And so any type of connection I can make, or any person I make, and I always tell people this, like in my stories, like, DM me if you have any questions, or if I can help you in any way. I might not know the answer, but I can find you the answer
Right.
somehow, some way, and
Right.
I'll do my best to do so. So it's been giving back, but also I have received support too, and it's just a two-way street.
That's amazing. What you just
Yeah,
said about all these like small successes, right? Like you
yeah,
said, the little things, and I can see how those little things can have such a big impact
Yeah.
on you as well, right? You say like
Yeah.
it is a two-way street. And what you said earlier about the mom who asked you if you would be back next month, and the commitment, if you will,
Yeah.
because I don't personally experience what you experience daily. I can certainly understand, like you say, things change and the permanency of things might not be there, but sounds
Yeah.
like your organization is just so dedicated to resiliency and showing up.
Yeah.
I'm sure that mom found a lot of comfort in that, knowing that it wasn't
Yeah.
like a one and done thing, right?
Yeah, and it's like a drive for me because, sometimes when it's really hard, I'm like, maybe I should just take a step back. But then that conversation creeps in and I'm just, it drives you a little bit more. And I
Yeah,
always tell when I try and reach out to businesses, I'm like, if you just allow me that 1 hour, that space, I promise I can bring you the people. Like I
right.
feel like that trust has been built and I'm so grateful for that. And so I
Mhm.
try and bring that to businesses too, because we have to, it has to work both ways. So
Right, right.
it's
They have to feel that it's a good investment for them as
yeah,
well, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And you've certainly demonstrated your ability to do that, and sounds again like you've got a lot of ideas how you can continue to demonstrate
yeah.
that and expand that,
Still
right?
going as
So
I'm talking.
that's awesome. That's so cool. The organization is Awesome Sauce,
Mhm.
AUSOME, awesomesauce.org.
Yeah,
Our founder, Sarah Watkins, thank you for telling us your journey. And thank you for the impact that Awesome Sauce is having on your community and telling us about the future and the vision for where you're going next. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much, Sarah.
thank you. I'm so honored, and you told them about our website, but yeah, we're on Instagram too. You can always DM us if you have any questions, and
What's your
yeah,
Instagram
it's
handle?
it's spelled the same way, so it's AUSOME and then sauce with two E's, so SAUCEE.
Just
Someone
make it
took the other one, so
a little
yeah.
extra
Give it
spicy.
a little
Yeah.
bit of saucy. But yeah.
I really like it. Sarah, thanks so much for your time again, and we look forward
Thank
to
you.
seeing you again soon.
All right. Thank you.